Good morning, Morai Rabotai, Bruchim Abayim. We are continuing our Masechet Makkot. We are on Daf Yud Zayin, Amud Aleph. We started the Mishnah, and we are 2 lines before the end of the Mishnah. Notel, Emabanim, Emalabanim. Today's Amud is being learned. Lischut Refuah Shlema, Rachel Simcha Bat Nahit, that should have full recovery. Refuah Shlema Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. This month's learnings of the community has been dedicated by the Dayan family, by Cohen family, by Shea family. Should be an ultimate zchut for all of their families. Be'ezrat Hashem. Amen. Amen. Okay, so let's quickly run through the words of the Mishnah. These are additional examples of what you don't and what you do get malkut for. So things that you get malkut is ha'ochel bikurim at shelo kara alehim. Our Tana holds, as we will see momentarily in the Gemara, that if you eat bikurim, which the Jews would bring from across Eretz Yisrael, the 7 species that Eretz Yisrael is praised with, and they would bring the first of the produce every year to the Kohen. If you eat it before, if the Kohen, meaning eats it, even the Kohen who's supposed to eat it, and eats them before the Baalim, before the owners read the parasha that they're supposed to read, of Arami Oved Aviv Ayeret Mitzrayim, etc., then the Kohen gets Malkut. We mentioned the process. You have to bring them, you enter them to Eretz Yisrael, to Yerushalayim rather, according to Rambam, that's when you become they called bikurim now, or according to the Meiri, when they see the Azara, and then you put them, the Kohen, you give them to the Kohen puts them in front of the Mizbeach of Hashem, and then take them and you say the parasha that you have to say, and then of course it's mutar for the Kohen to eat it. So if you, before you read the parasha of Vidui Maaser, it would be asur for the Kohen to eat it. We mentioned the highest level of kodashim has to be eaten inside the Azara. Kodashim kalim, the lower level of kodashim, could be eaten in Yerushalayim, but not outside the walls of Yerushalayim. Maaser sheni is the same thing as kodashim kalim. Hashover etzem bepesach hatahor, if you break a bone in a regular korban pesach, it says ve'etzem lo tishperubo. You're not allowed to break any of the bones. If you do, you're in transgression of a lav, and you get malkut. But that's only in Pesach. That's tahor. If it's a Pesach tameh, says the Mishnah, then you don't get malkut. So we mentioned the example of that could be if the majority of Klal Yisrael is tameh, then tum'ah hutra betzibur, you could bring a korban Pesach while being tameh, and that, even though that's a kosher korban Pesach, quote unquote, you don't have the transgression. You don't get malkut for breaking a bone. And said the Mishnah, hamotir betahor, also you don't get, you don't get malkut if you leave over from besar haPesach until the morning. Also, you don't get malkut. Why? Well, because it is lav hanita klase. It says don't leave over, but if you did, ba'esh tisrofu, you burn it. Therefore, lav hanita klase, you don't get malkut. Fine. So this is where we're holding. Hanotel ema labanim. Last case of the Mishnah is something that we're familiar with already from Daf Yudalit, right? And Tetvav, that if you are doing the mitzvah of kan sibor, you find a nest, and the mother and the chicks are over there. Don't take the mother together with the chick, says the Torah. Shaleach teshalach et ha'em. Let's send away the mother, by the way, just a very important grammatical point in the entire Chumash, which has maybe 3 exceptions, is probably most people have not paid attention to this. There is a difference between shaleach, when it's medugash, right, and shelach. Shlach means send them and they'll come back. Shlach lecha anashim. You're not trying to get rid of the meraglim, right? even though they end up getting rid of 10 of them, but they're supposed to go and come back, right? But shaleach means when you're sending and you don't want them to come back, right? That's sending away, right? So shalach edaim, send the mother away, and get the chicks for yourself. So what happens if you took the mother? Well, it depends how you read the pasuk. We had the whole machloket Resh Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. For those who remember, if you don't, please do review. Right? We had the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda versus Chachamim, and the question was, how do you read this pasuk? Do you read it Shalach teshalach etaim? First, send away the mother, and then only then Ve'et habanim tikach lach. Then take the chick. Now, if you took them together, you've transgressed this, and there's no way to fix it. It's not a lav hanitak lase, it's lav shkdamo ase. Therefore, there's no fix. Or, alternatively, the Gemara said, maybe you could read it, that no, shalach edaim means you send the mother. Even if you took them, you send the mother still. And that's a fix. So therefore, you don't get malkut. So here says the Gemara, hanotel emal panim, if you did take the mother together with the chicks. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, look, Rabbi Yehuda says, there's no fixing it. Right? No fixing it. And therefore, look, and says Rambam understands this differently without getting into the details of it. Sending the mother doesn't help anymore. You already transgressed. It's not a lav hanitak laseh. You can't fix it, and therefore you get malkut. Chachamim omrim. Chachamim say no. Meshaleach ve'no loke. You send the mother now, and that is considered enough of a fix of lav hanitak laseh, and therefore you don't get malkut. Fine. So that's machloket Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim. Ze haklal, the Mishnah ends with saying, Kol mitzvot lo ta'aseh shesh ba kum aseh. When you have a mitzvah that is negative commandment of lo ta'aseh, don't do it, and it has kum aseh, you don't transgress it by just sitting around, like Korban Pesach, that you sit around and you transgress leaving over from Korban Pesach. But it actually has a kum aseh, right? Then you don't get sheyesh bakum aseh. Sorry, that it means that you have a kum aseh afterwards, that you fix it afterwards. If you transgress, you now get up and do something to fix it, like this. That the Chachamim understand. Don't take lo tikach ha'em al habanim, shalach teshalach et ha'em, right? That's how they understand that this is mitzvah lo ta'aseh hanitak laseh. There has a kum aseh to fix it, en chayavin ala. You don't get malkut. Says the Gemara. Back to the beginning of the Mishnah, we said bikurim. When is the time that you transgress it? If the kohen eats bikurim before when? Before they read the parasha, before the baalim say the parasha that he has to say, right? Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana, who was, Rabbi Bar Chana is one of the main Talmidim of Rabbi Yochanan. So he says in the name of his Rebbe, Rabbi Yochanan, Zu Divrei Rabbi Akiva Setim Ta'a. This is the Mishnah that we learned about Bikurim, is the Shita of Rabbi Akiva. Why does the Mishnah, the Gemara call it Rabbi Akiva Setim Ta'a? Because Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rebbe, the author of Mishnayot, usually, I mean, he has rules and regulations how it works. Usually, Stam Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. But sometimes, Rabbi makes Stam Mishnah like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Meir also is Aliba de Rabbi Akiva. These are all Talmidim, right? The Kulam, Aliba de Rabbi Akiva. Right? Any Stam Mishnah eventually is Aliba de Rabbi Akiva. Right? Even if it's Rabbi Meir, Kulam, Aliba de Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva became the father of Rash Baal Peh. But sometimes it's a direct shita of Rabbi Akiva, and that's why he calls it Rabbi Akiva Stimta. It's one of the anomalies of cases that Stam Mishnah is covered without saying who it is, and it's Rabbi Akiva. So he knew, Rabbi Yochanan knew, there is a shita of Rabbi Akiva somewhere, somehow, that holds that for bikurim you get malkut, even if you eat it after the Kohen puts it next to the Mizbeach, so long as it is before the Baalim read the text that they should be reading. You still get malkut. That's shita of Rabbi Akiva. Avar Chachamim omrim, Chachamim hold, no, bikurim hanacha ma'akevet bahen, kriya, and ma'akevet bahen. When it comes to bikurim, the Kohen putting it next to Mizbeach is the last stage that is a necessity. So if you eat it before the Kohen puts it next to Mizbeach, lashes. But if the Kohen already put it next to Mizbeach and you were overcome by desire and you took a piece and ate it, okay. Kriya and ma'akevet. The reading, it's not, sometimes you don't even have kriya. Mevi ve'eno kore. The Mishnah in Bikurim has many cases that you are mevi ve'eno kore. That you bring it but you don't read. So kriya cannot be ma'akev. Chachamim hold. Fine. And that's the halacha, right? The halacha is the chachamim, of course. So the Mara says, wait a second. This is Rabbi Akiva. We don't even know where the Rabbi Akiva is. You know who this is that we do know of? This is Rabbi Shimon's shita. Everybody knows that this is Rabbi Shimon. As we'll see in a moment, apparently it was a very well-known thing that this is the shita of Rabbi Shimon. So Mara says, this is not Rabbi Akiva, it's Rabbi Shimon. So why don't you just say, V'lema zu divrei Rabbi Shimon stimta? If you are already telling me that this is an anomaly, that's not like Rabbi Meir, as one of those cases that Stam Mishnah is like Rabbi, should be Rabbi Akiva, should be Rabbi Shimon. Because we all know that this is the shita of Rabbi Shimon. So the Gemara says, yeah, you're correct. He doesn't disagree with that. This is shita of Rabbi Shimon, as we'll see in just a moment. Hakamash malam, but this is coming to teach us that Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shimon sevirale. It's just teaching you an extra halacha that we have a Rabbi Akiva that holds like Rabbi Shimon. Right? Fine. My Rabbi Shimon, what is this famous Rabbi Shimon shita that everyone seems to know about besides us? The Tanya, right? It's a Braita. The Braita says, an ingenious drasha of Rabbi Shimon. Genius. Says the Gemara, the Tanya, we learned in the Braita, Utrumat yadcha. Well, before I read to you, let me give you a preface. This is a pasuk that talks about a number of things, end up being 6 different things, that the Torah says you cannot do bish'arecha, you can't do it in your courtyards, in your gates. You have to come to Yerushalayim to do it. You can't just do it anywhere in Eretz Yisrael. And Rabbi Shimon darshins the pasuk backwards from the end to the beginning instead of from the, and only words backwards, right? So listen to the pasuk, and then we'll go through it. You'll see how this works. I'm reading from the side now. Lo tuchal lechol bish'arecha, says the pasuk. You cannot eat in your gateways, in your sha'arayich, in your cities outside Eretz Yisrael. Maaser dekanecha, your maaserot. It's talking about maaser sheni. You have to bring it where? To Yerushalayim. So remember, maaser sheni is something that is very kal, because I could eat it myself. I don't need a Kohen, I don't need a Levi. I'm a zar, right? You're regularly still considered a zar, a stranger, right? It's not a Kohen, not a Levi, but still I could eat it. And yet you can't eat it in Eretz Yisrael, you have to eat it in Yerushalayim. So that's the first case. Once you tell me that I can't eat in Yerushalayim, do I need to tell you that the things that are much more chamur, that you have to be in Yerushalayim to eat them? Of course not. That becomes the central point of Rabbi Shimon's drasha. Why in the world did the pasuk have to say it like this? If you already told me as the first case in the pasuk that you can't eat maaser sheni bish'arecha in areas other than Yerushalayim, even in Eretz Yisrael. So of course the rest of it goes without saying. Just don't tell me. So it must be that every one of them that you're telling me, it needs to be said for an additional din that you're coming to teach me? And he, one by one, surgically explains each one of them in the most glorious way possible, right? To the degree that at the end of this Amud, the Gemara says, if anyone wants to give birth to a baby, better be like Rabbi Shimon, this baby, because this is the ultimate Jewish child, right? So the Gemara says like this. No, let's read the pasuk first. So lo techal lechol bish'arecha, maaser degarcha, first thing. Tiroshcha v'yisharecha ubechorot bekarcha besoncha v'chol nedarecha asher tidor v'nidvotecha utrumat yadcha. All of those things you cannot eat in Eretz Yisrael unless you're in Yerushalayim. Fine. So what are these 6 things? Let's go. Says the Gemara. Utrumat yadcha. Remember, I said this is going to be darshan backwards, right? So the last word that the pasuk says, utrumat yadcha. What is terumat yadcha? What is something that's considered terumah that you bring with your hands?
Bikurim.
What? It's a bikurim. You put it on the hand of the kohen, right? It says, "Velakach hakohen tene miyadecha." It takes the basket from your hands. Terumat yadcha elu bikurim. It's bikurim that you bring. So Amar Rabbi Shimon, our own Rabbi Shimon says, Ma bazel elamedenu. What is this terumat yadcha coming to teach me? Don't you tell me, im leochlan chutz lechoma, if he's coming to tell me that you can't eat them outside the walls of Yerushalayim, seriously? That can't be the chidush. Kal vachomer mimaaser akal. The first case that you mentioned in this very pasuk was maaser. The maaser sheni, even though that is considered like chulin almost, right? Because I, the Israel, the Zar, the non-Kohen could eat it. And yet I have to be in Yerushalayim. So you need to tell me that Bikurim, which is a case of Terumah, that only Kohen could eat, you have to tell me that has to be Yerushalayim. Of course he has to be in Yerushalayim. I would know it from Kal Vachomer. So if I know something from Kal Vachomer, why are you telling me this? By the way, the Gemara is going to deal with this later. What's the obvious elephant in the room?
You can't make a kol v'chomer onshim min adin.
Exactly. We just learned. We're learning this for Malkut, right? You want to hit the guy. And onshim min adin. You cannot learn the kal vachomer and hit the guy. So that Gemara is going to, don't think we're outsmarting the Gemara is going to get to that. But for now, just enjoy the ride. It's amazing, the drasha of Rabbi Shimon, without this technical elephant in the room, right? So says the Gemara, Kal vachomer maaser. Maaser, who is the least chashuv, that even a non-Kohen could eat it. If you eat it outside the walls of Yerushalayim, you're going to get lashes. Bikurim lo kol sheken. Of course, bikurim, you're going to get lashes. Halo ba katuv, so says Rabbi Shimon, therefore the pasuk is not coming to teach you that. It's coming to teach you a new halacha. Ela leochel mi bikurim ad shelo kara alehen. That's the shita of Rabbi Shimon who holds, if you touch that bikurim before the kriyah of the parasha, that the Baalim have to read the text, you get malkut. So therefore, putting it in front of the mizbach is not sufficient. You have to wait until the owners read the text, and then you could eat them. Fine.
So he's saying, in the absence of it being written, I would know from kol v'chomer anyway. So the fact that it's written, I learned this additional din of the din of Korah.
Exactly. So says the Gemara. Next one, we're going backwards, right? So what's the one before the last case? Last case was bikurim terumat yadcha. The one before it is venitvotecha. What's venitvotecha? Zu toda v'shelamim. Those are korban toda v'shelamim, the personal korbanot that are kochim kalim. Amar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon darshins this now. So ma bazel elamedenu. What is this one coming to teach you? Im lochlan chutz lechoma. We already said can't be saying that you can't eat them outside the walls of Yerushalayim, because that I learned already from Kal vachomer, from Maaser, the same thing, right? Kal vachomer and Maaser, if you would have just told me Maaser Sheni, I would have known Todah v'Shelamim already from Kal vachomer. Halo ba hakatuv ela leochel betodah v'Shelamim lifnei zerika shehu lokeh. It's coming to tell you that if you eat from the flesh of these korbanot, you're the body, you can eat them, right? But there's a time, there's restrictions. The restriction is when they do shchita, Kabbalah, they have the blood in this mizrak. But then you have holacha ve'zerika. You have to wait until the Kohen gets around to doing zerika on the Mizbeach, and then you can eat it. You can't just cut a piece and do shish kebab and eat it there. You can't do that, right? You have to wait for the zerika to happen. If you ate it before the zerika, even if you're eating it mamash right there in Yerushalayim, in Makkot, you get lashes. How do I know? From this drasha. Because otherwise, why is he saying it? All the other halachot of Todah v'Shlamim I already know. So therefore, he's coming to teach you this chidush. Fine, very good. Well, now the third case, working backwards. Ubchorot, this that he says, bechorot, bekarcha v'sonecha, ze bechor. This is talking about a case of bechor, right? Bechor you have to also bring to the Beit HaMikdash. Amar Rabbi Shimon. Says Rabbi Shimon, what is this one teaching? Now, remember, all of these are in the same pasuk. So once you say one of them, that you don't have to say that by the more chamur. Rabbi Shimon holds that the hierarchy of the pasuk works backwards. The pasuk tells you the most chamur first, which is olah. Olah is the most chamur. You can't even touch it. You can't even eat it. The whole thing burns, aside from the ore, aside from the skin. So that's the most chamur, kodshe kodashim, and then it's chatat v'asham, then kodshim kalim, right? It goes lower, right? After maaser, all of them are. So why do you have to tell me that? Already you told me todah v'shlamim, so you can't be telling me the chidush that I learned from todah v'shlamim. So im loch lan chutz lechoma. Let's go through the motions here. If you're coming to tell me that I can't eat them, meaning the Bechor, I can't eat the Bechor outside of Yerushalayim, I already know that from where? Kal vachomer from Maaser. The same thing, right? You tell me Maaser, I know all of these things, because Maaser is the least chamur. If you're going to tell me that you can't eat it before Zerikat Tamim, before you sprinkle the blood, you already told me that by Todah v'Shlamim. Now, which one is more chamur, Todah v'Shlamim or Bechor? Bechor is more chamur. Why is Bechor more chamur? They're the same level of Kodashim, but Bechor is more chamur because it is Kadosh Mirechem, right? You don't have to make it holy. It is holy from the moment of birth already. Right? Versus Todah v'Shlamim that you have to say, Hareze, this. You made it Kadosh. This guy was Kadosh Mirechem. So it's a higher level of. So if I tell you that by Todah v'Shlamim you have to wait until Zrikat Damim, do you not know already on your own that by Bechor you have to wait for Zrikat Damim? Of course you do. So then why are you saying it? There has to be an additional chidush that only Bechor has and not Todah v'Shlamim. What is that chidush? You may scratch your head, says the Gemara, says Rabbi Shimon, Kal vachomer mitodah v'shlamim, halo ba katuv, but the pasuk is coming to teach you, ela leochel min habechor, afilu leachar zerika, shehu lo ke. That by bechor, you get lashes, even if you eat it after zerika. If you eat it, the non-kohen. Who could eat bechor? Go ahead. This is the best way HaKadosh Baruch Hu has set it up. Like, you don't need to fundraise. They have to bring it. They can't touch it. If they touch it, they'll get malkut. They have to give it to the yeshiva. They have to give it to the Kohanim, right? It's an ingenious way of supporting Torah without bringing the Torah lower. That's for a different time. Says the Gemara, Bekarcha v'sonecha. Now, working backwards again in the pasuk. What's the next case? Back up. Bekarcha v'sonecha. It says Bechorot. Bekarcha v'sonecha. So Bechor you said, what's Bekarcha v'sonecha? Zu chatat ve'asham. It's Korban chatat and Korban asham. Oh, the chatat ve'asham is already a higher level of Kedusha. Now we know already, right? That's Kodshe Kodashim you're talking about. Kodshe Kodashim, you could have learned all of those things from Kal Vachomer from the previous cases. So Amar Rabbi Shimon, what is this one teaching? I know only all the details that you said up until now from Kal Vachomer. Im leochlan chutz lechoma. Let's go through the motions again. If you're telling me that you can't eat them chutz leYerushalayim, the walls of Yerushalayim, Kal Vachomer from Maaser, that we already know. Im lifnei zerika, if you're coming to teach me that you can't eat it before zerika, I know that from Yalla. Kal Vachomer mitodah v'shlamim. You already told me todah v'shlamim, right? Im leachar zerika, if you're telling me that Baalim cannot eat it, that I know already from Kal Vachomer from Bechor. Halo ba katuv, ela, the pasuk is coming to teach me a new chidush that is addition to all the ones that we said before. What is that? Says the Gemara, leochel michatat v'asham afilu la'achar zerika, even after zerika, you cannot eat it unless you are inside the kelayim. You could only, kodesh kodashim, remember we said kodesh kodashim, you could eat them, not in Yerushalayim, but only in the Azara, within the walls of Azara. You could only eat them. You step out of the Azara, you get malkut if you eat them. Now, nedarecha, working backwards again, nedarecha zu olah. Oh, that's korban olah. That's the highest level here, right? What is that? Amar Rabbi Shimon, ma ba'zel lamedenu. What is that teaching you? Ribono shel olam, you already said everything, right? What is this teaching you? Im lochlan, again, let's go through everything. Im lochlan chutz lechoma. If you're telling me that you can't eat them outside Yerushalayim, right? Kal vachomer mi maaser. You can't. Now we know. Im lifnei zerika, that you can't eat it before zerikat damim. You know that from todah v'shlamim. Im la'achar zerika, that you can't eat it even after zerika. You know that from Bechor. Im chutz lekelayim, and if you want to tell me that you can't eat it chutz lekelayim, already I know that from Chatat. So just tell me all the other cases and don't tell me olah. Why are you telling me olah? I should know everything from Kal Vachomer. Must be is teaching me one new thing. Says the Gemara, lo ba katuv. The pasuk is coming to teach me. Ela leochel min haolah. It's coming to teach you that you get malkut if you eat olah, even if you're doing it after zerika, even inside the kelaim of Azara, even by a kohen. Because olah, no one could touch, no one could eat. The entire thing has to be burnt. Shouloke, Amar Rava. Look at this. Rava says, the Elida Imeh, a woman that wants to give birth, should daven, ke Rabbi Shimon tolid. It should give birth to a child like Rabbi Shimon, and if it's not going to be like Rabbi Shimon, lo tolid. She doesn't give birth. The Ritva says, okay, take this line out. That's already too sharp. It's not, you don't have to say that. It could be pretty good without being like Rabbi Shimon. Right? That's correct. No, that's Rabbi Yehoshua. But nevertheless, correct. Nevertheless, that's because there's midot and so. But says the Gemara, the funny part is, even with all of this, ve'af al gav, de'it lepircha. Now you'll see that Rava would categorically reject this Jasha of Rabbi Shimon. He says, I don't agree with the thing that he said, as you'll see, but it is so beautiful that you have to give this bracha. You got to give it to him. You want to give birth to a child, it has to be like Rabbi Shimon with a fantastic drasha. He reconstructed the entire pasuk based on all the details to show you all the halachot that you need to know. All of it is from one pasuk that you learn. When tomorrow we'll see Be'ezrat Hashem how Rava himself actually deals with this. What is his major kasha on this? Why he rejects everything that Rabbi Shimon said, and then how he actually understands it. It's going to be a Gemara for tomorrow.